The abandoned road. Late one night, a seasoned trucker named Jack was driving along a remote highway. It was a desolate area with few signs of civilization, and the darkness outside was almost suffocating. Jack had been on the road for hours, battling fatigue as he pressed on toward his destination. As he drove, Jack noticed a faint glow up ahead, a road veering off from the main highway. It seemed out of place, as if it had been forgotten or abandoned. Curiosity piqued, he decided to take a detour and explore this mysterious road, hoping it would break the monotony of his journey. As Jack turned onto the abandoned road, a sense of unease washed over him. The air grew thick and heavy, and an eerie silence enveloped his truck. The dim glow of his headlights barely pierced the darkness, revealing only a narrow path winding through dense woods. Suddenly, Jack's heart skipped a beat when he saw something ahead, figures standing in the middle of the road. Their presence startled him, and he instinctively hit the brakes, bringing his truck to a screeching halt. His eyes strained to make sense of the scene before him. The figures appeared human but were strangely still, almost statuesque. Their clothing was tattered and dirty, hanging from their emaciated frames. As his headlights illuminated their faces, Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Hollow eyes stared back at him, devoid of life, and their lips curled into grotesque smiles. Fear gripped Jack as he realized something was terribly wrong. Every instinct told him to escape, to turn his truck around and flee. Adrenaline surged through his veins as he shifted into reverse, the truck's tires spinning in their attempt to grip the road. Finally, the truck lurched backward, and Jack accelerated, his heart pounding in his chest. As he left the abandoned road behind, he glanced in his rearview mirror and saw the figures growing smaller, their disturbing smiles fading into the darkness. Back on the main highway, Jack's breathing began to steady, but his mind raced with questions. Who were those people? What had he stumbled upon? He decided to report the incident to the authorities, hoping they could shed light on the eerie encounter. In the following days, Jack discovered a chilling revelation. The abandoned road he had ventured down was infamous among locals. It was said to be haunted, cursed by the spirits of accident victims who had lost their lives in tragic collisions on that very stretch of road. According to the tales, these tormented souls would manifest themselves to unsuspecting drivers, luring them to a similar fate. From that night forward, Jack refused to venture down unfamiliar roads, especially those shrouded in darkness. The encounter on the abandoned road had left an indelible mark on his psyche, a reminder of the hidden terrors that lay in the shadows of the open road. The Hitchhiker. Late one evening, a trucker named Mark was making his way along a long, desolate highway. The road seemed endless, and the darkness outside seemed to swallow everything in its path. Mark had been driving for hours, feeling the weariness in his bones. As he continued his journey, Mark noticed a figure standing on the side of the road, their thumb outstretched in a hitchhiker's gesture. It was a risky decision to pick up a stranger, especially in the middle of the night, but something about the person's appearance tugged at Mark's empathy. He slowed down and pulled over, deciding to offer them a ride. The hitchhiker climbed into the truck's cabin, and Mark noticed that they appeared to be in their early 30s, with disheveled hair and a worn-out expression. They exchanged a few pleasantries, and the hitchhiker seemed friendly enough. As they drove on, however, Mark began to notice a subtle change in the hitchhiker's demeanor. The hitchhiker's conversation grew increasingly erratic and disjointed. They would shift from cheerful topics to disturbing statements without warning. Mark's unease grew, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this passenger. Nevertheless, he remained composed, focusing on reaching the next gas station where he could part ways with the hitchhiker. As they approached the gas station, Mark signaled to turn into the parking lot. But before they could reach the entrance, he glanced over to see that the hitchhiker had vanished without a trace. Shock and confusion washed over him. How could someone simply disappear from the truck's cabin? It was as if the hitchhiker had never been there in the first place. Mark's heart raced as he pulled into the gas station, his mind reeling with questions. He approached the cashier, a middle-aged woman, and shared the bizarre incident. The woman's eyes widened in disbelief as she heard his account. She explained that several years ago, a tragic car accident had occurred on that very highway. A young hitchhiker had been fatally injured, and their body had never been found. The incident had become the stuff of local legends, with reports of a hitchhiker's ghost appearing to unsuspecting drivers. Mark's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. The hitchhiker he had picked up that night was none other than the ghostly apparition of the deceased traveler. It seemed that they had chosen him as a vessel to experience one more fleeting moment of existence before disappearing into the unknown. From that day forward, Mark became more cautious about picking up hitchhikers, especially in remote areas. He shared his harrowing encounter with fellow truckers, warning them to be wary of the supernatural lurking along the open road. The Phantom Pursuer. Late one night, A trucker named Sarah was driving along a quiet stretch of highway. The road was enveloped in darkness, with only her truck's headlights piercing through the blackness. Sarah had been on the road for hours, her eyes heavy with fatigue. As she continued her journey, Sarah noticed a set of headlights rapidly approaching from behind. The car tailgated her truck, its bright lights blinding her in the rearview mirror. Confused and irritated, she signaled to change lanes, hoping the driver would pass her by. However, no matter how Sarah maneuvered, the car stayed glued to her truck's tail. Growing increasingly concerned, Sarah reached for her phone and dialed the emergency line, explaining the situation to the dispatcher. The dispatcher assured her that an officer would meet her at the next exit to assess the situation and provide assistance. Relieved, Sarah clung to the hope of escaping her pursuer. As the exit came into view, Sarah's heart raced. She prepared to make her escape and find safety with the awaiting officer. But as she took the exit, she glanced in her rearview mirror and froze in horror. The pursuing car had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only an empty stretch of road. Sarah pulled over, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. She couldn't comprehend what she had witnessed. How could a car simply disappear without a trace? Doubts crept into her mind. Had it all been a figment of her exhausted imagination? Or had she encountered something truly supernatural? Moments later, the sound of approaching sirens shattered the silence. The police officer arrived, finding Sarah visibly shaken. She recounted the strange pursuit and the sudden disappearance of her pursuer. The officer listened intently, his expression grave. He explained that there had been reports of similar incidents along that particular highway, drivers being relentlessly pursued by a phantom vehicle before it vanished without a trace. Legend had it that the road was cursed, haunted by the ghost of a vengeful spirit. According to the local lore, the spirit had been a victim of a hit-and-run accident, and now sought to torment drivers as a form of revenge. Sarah left that encounter with a newfound appreciation for the mysteries of the road. She became cautious, always vigilant for any unusual occurrences during her travels. The memory of the phantom pursuer served as a constant reminder that not everything on the highway could be easily explained.